have it on vibrate because it just.
Well, it seems like it would be appropriate for your phone to vibrate since we're going to be talking a lot
It is
about
so when it does go
rattlesnakes.
out, the tone on it I got from Mark O'Shea, a friend of mine from Animal Planet, and it's a rattlesnake. So it goes. So when I have ranch and stuff near me back in Portal, when they're like jumping around, looking around, it's my phone. It's like they go, "God damn it, Bob! I hate your phone," because they remember it from before. But,
And it sounds so realistic, right?
oh yeah, you would know. I
And
mean,
so that is your phone.
that's my ringtone.
All right,
Yeah,
We have Bob Ashley on today, and we're going to be talking about rattlesnakes, among other things, snakes, and as well as Apache material. So if you really don't like snakes, you've been warned.
That's right.
So we'll talk about it. But it's all interesting things, too. So he's right now trying to find his ringtone, which is of a rattlesnake?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So it comes out.
Oh, I'm on vibrate, so here, let me see.
Yeah, we'll get it going. There's nothing like starting a sound of a podcast with a rattlesnake doing its thing.
I'm not a tech guy, as you can tell.
This makes for bad video. While he's doing that, I'll show you one of the things we'll talk about too. While he's looking at that, this is just a cool. This is a death adder, and this is on snake.
Sounds pretty real.
Sounds very real. Sounds just like it.
Yeah.
That's
my ringtone. That's my ringtone. Yeah.
So this we'll talk about this book too, which is on treatments, snake bite treatments, and all that. We'll get to that. This is a multifaceted podcast for me because I've always been fascinated with snakes since a little boy.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember your first encounter?
When I was a kid, I was probably around 6 or 7, and I was intrigued by snakes, but a little afraid of them. So I remember I think one of the first ones I saw was a blue racer, and I remember following it through the grass in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was a big snake. It's probably as big as I was, probably around 4 foot, and I just watched it go. I just kind of followed around, but I was afraid to pick it up. And a couple years later, then I got my first garter snake, and that kind of took off from there. So then I got bit by garter snakes. Like, this is no big deal. And then you catch water snakes and everything else, and it's no big deal. So
I brought one home when I was, I don't know, I must have been 4 or 5, and just brought it into the house. And my parents were like, no, you can't just grab snakes like that, Mark. Yeah. And I'm like, why? I was like, well, some can hurt you. And I'm like, well, this one sure didn't. Because now we'll need to let that one go. And I always had them. I had them in my house. I had them.
Our basement was filled. And
I had all sorts of things.
Even we grew up with the only venomous snake in Michigan was the Massasauga rattlesnake.
Oh, yeah.
And at 14, I had a couple of them that my parents didn't know. They were, everyone was hognose snakes and stuff. But I got a couple of those, and that was just a cool, neat animal. Yeah. I was very careful with them. So.
Yeah, one of those got lost in my dad's lab in Massasauga. Took about a week to find it, and it was finally in the sill of a window, warming itself. Yeah. But I had the boa. I even had a boa that I brought to college with me. Cool. Then it became unrealistic to try to, feed it and keep it. And my roommate did not like it whatsoever. He's from Philadelphia.
Yeah, we had all kinds. I remember one time we had a little eastern milk snake that had. It gotten out, and it was probably maybe 18 inches, but it had coiled around the little spray nozzle where the sink is, where you wash your dishes. Yeah. So when my mom turned the faucet on, the spray nozzle was pulled, so she started getting sprayed. She didn't know what was going on, but there was a snake wrapped around it. So that was she's like, "Mommy,"
and that
So another time was a hognose snake down in the basement. I cleaned the basement at night, and it was sitting there huffing and puffing. Its mouth is wide open, and it's like acting like it's deadly. I'm like, Of course they're harmless. Right. Just reached out, picked it up. So it's fine. It's not gonna hurt you.
And it was yours?
Yeah, it was mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the guy who did the water softener at our house wouldn't go into the water softener area. It was a little shed though. I just had laden with all types of reptiles. Yeah. And that was my spot.
I had to hide things because the meter reader would come in and check the gas meter in Michigan. This is back in the 70s. Yeah. And I would cover all the snakes that he'd have to walk through with sheets so they wouldn't know what was there. So that's what I did when he was covered. My mom would say, go down. So give us 5 minutes and I'd cover everything up and then go through. So.
And so the snakes that you had as a kid, were those just things you caught locally?
Yeah, there were things I caught locally. And then as I got older, I had a friend that lived in Europe, and we used to do a lot of trading and stuff. And friends, it wasn't a big deal back then, but back then they'd send me a little box from Europe, in the post, and it'd have like a little rat snake in it or something like that, or a little water snake. And they'd say, hey, can you send me a blue racer? And I'd do, I was 15 or 16 years old then. So it'd be pretty bad to do nowadays, but then it was,
on many levels.
Wasn't a big deal back then.
Probably, plus you're probably very cognizant of just taking snakes out of their environment.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we breed stuff at the museum. We breed a lot of the rare species, so we don't do that now. But when you're a kid, everything's
No, I know. My mom actually embroidered my name on a bag, a snake bag, because that's what I would go do on the free time. Is I would go snag reptiles and just I don't know what it is.
I was always catching toads or something. Yeah,
right. I mean, I still wear a snake around my neck every day. Roy Talahafta made and one around my wrists.
Of course, you need to come up to the museum, but we have the reptile art I've been buying my whole life is just our museums. There's no one place in the world that has as much herp art as we have. So.
Is that true? I mean,
by far, yeah.
Oh yeah,
we probably have 6-7 times more than you see anywhere else. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So and that's why one of the reasons I wanted you on. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but you have do you call it a rattlesnake museum or do you call it a herpetology?
It's the Chiricahua Desert Museum is the name of it.
Okay,
so
and it is basically in the Chiricahua.
It's in the Chiricahuas. We have a botanical garden. You can walk out and there's lots of live. You can see tortoises and Gila monsters and all kinds of native lizards and turtles in the garden. And we kind of. Well, I always loved the Snow Desert Museum, and they have this. Too. When you walk into there, there's like a little walled off area before you go into the entrance. That's probably it might be 15 feet by 10 feet, and they had lizards like chuckwallas and different things in there. So our whole garden outside is more like 3 acres walled off. That's escape proof with a porcelain tile that people can walk into. And you can see all these animals, nothing venomous, all harmless animals. You can see all these animals. They live out there year round. They hibernate. Everything's out there. So you can see it. There's a creek that goes through there and a pond.
That was always my dream to have something like that.
Yeah. Well, So we used a lot of Amex points at Home Depot buying cement center blocks to make the walls. So we've gone through 50 pallets of block probably to make all the walls there.
Wow. Yeah, no. I first came to Arizona that I remember when I was about 8 or 9, and I stayed. My dad was doing research, and we were at the Desert Museum near it, and I remember seeing that Chuckawalla thing, and I thought, I want to live in Arizona. I want to live in Tucson.
Yeah.
Especially with the cactus.
I love the cactus. I'm a big fan of succulents and cactus, and we have our whole garden is decorated with all kinds of different things in Cholla. And
that's the 12. Is that where you can walk in and see?
You can walk in through there. And then on the outside of the garden, we have an event center and Apache museum that's all decorated with rock and cactuses and things like that from all over the place.
And so how big is that area that you have that's enclosed?
We have about the area that's enclosed. We have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gardens. They're all enclosed. You can walk in the main one, which is probably, if I had to guess, around 2.5, 3 acres.
That's big.
And then there's all these smaller ones around there. You can see different protected tortoises, like Texas tortoises or Bolson's tortoises, Gila monsters. You have to look over the wall to see the Gila monsters because you want them to get bit. And
do you have the Mexican beaded lizard in there as well?
We have those. We even have the really rare ones from the Chiapas, the black ones, the Alvarezii. Yeah. But those are on exhibit inside where we have live exhibits inside as well.
And so, can Gila monsters and Mexican beaded lizards? I know they're different species, right? Subspecies?
They're the same genus, but they're different species.
Correct. Yes. That's what I thought.
Yeah, Heloderma.
Yeah, exactly. So can they interbreed though? And if they can, are they?
Different beaded lizards have definitely interbred. Yeah. I don't know of anyone breeding a Gila monster to a beaded lizard, though I know different genuses that have crossbred with reptiles from a Walmas python from Australia versus a ball python from Africa have done. So I would say I'm sure they can.
Yeah, I just wondered. I mean, because their area also crosses over, right?
There are areas where beaded lizards and Gila monsters overlap.
We're kind of one of them, aren't we? Right here, right at the edge of it.
No, beaded lizards are quite a bit. They're down in Mexico quite a bit, so we're a long way from any beaded lizards.
Okay.
So they're
I've
down
never
in Mexico.
seen one, but
they're a beautiful animal. Not as pretty as Gila monsters because they don't have all that beautiful color.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the different species in captivity that people have bred back and forth, and it's like and unlike a mule, they're fertile. So
that
you can
was my other question.
Yeah, so you can take 2 different genuses, breed them together. Which then the definition of a species is you're not supposed to be able to crossbreed.
Correct.
But it doesn't work with reptiles, a lot of them. And they actually are fertile and can reproduce a lot of times.
And do you guys do any of that?
We don't. No, we were pretty, we try to make sure we keep things not only by species, but we also do it by locality. Because you look at the different mountain ranges in Arizona, and you can have banded rock rattlesnakes, which is a state protected animal, or a Ridge-nosed rattlesnake, which is also protected and a state reptile. Well, every mountain range, there's no gene flow from this hill to this hill, and they call them sky islands for that reason, because they don't go down there. So because of that, these things are evolving separately, And even though right now a lot of these things are the same animal,
right.
I mean,
species
taxonomically they're the same animal, but in a million years they probably won't be. And you can also tell. I can look at originals rattlesnake from one area, for one mountain range, into another one, and not 100% of the time, but a lot of times say, that one's from the Santa Ritas or this one's from the Huachucas, and there's variables in there. They're like, well, it's but and the Banner Rock rattlesnakes are the same way.
And it's more phenotypic on that, something like that. So one's a little darker, has some kind of little tell that says it's this.
And like speckled rattlesnakes, they're also a Arizona native, and like the ones from down there south of Yuma are like really white because of all the granite down there is white. And you've got some that are up near Baghdad that are really red. The rock and the sand and there's red. So they can really be variable depending on what habitat they come from.
Yeah, but phenotypically they're changed. Genetically they're not.
Yeah.
And so Arizona has the most different types of rattlesnakes in America, right?
Oh, by far.
Yeah. What do we have, like 12?
Well, it depends if you're going by species or subspecies, and it varies because, like the Grand Canyon rattlesnake, depending on taxonomically how it shows, or the Hopi rattlesnake. Like right now, the Hopi rattlesnake doesn't exist, but it's just a prairie rattlesnake rather than Nuntius. So right now it doesn't, but it's really it's a locality thing. In my opinion, there's 19 different rattlesnakes in Arizona that are different. Now they're not 19 different species in Arizona,
right?
So
how many different species are
there's there? I think it varies. Obviously, I think there's around 13 or 14 species, something like that. Yeah.
And you must have every one of them in your museum.
In the museum right now, I believe we have every one of them. In fact, there's a new one that that was just recently discovered in right as you enter into the Wallapai Nation, there where the west rim is, where they got that glass bridge.
Yeah.
There's a new snake there that they originally thought was maybe an Abyssus Cerberus hybrid, which is a Grand Canyon rattlesnake with a black rattlesnake, and it's actually a different animal, and there's some influences there. And if you go over towards the Surbats a little bit, they've got some more Litosis influence, which is the Great Plains rattlesnake.
Right.
So there's some difference there, but it is a different animal.
Right.
So.
And to me, it would be.
You call it Wallapenensis is what they're calling it now.
Wallapenensis, that's the species.
Yeah. It doesn't even have a common name as far as I know. I don't even know a common name for it.
Well, and it may be a very small group of snakes.
It's a very small group of snakes, and I don't know that it's actually. I don't think it's even listed as acknowledged by the state yet, and there's still some more work to do on it. So who knows what's going to happen with it?
And is doing something like that where you're. I mean, it's a rare thing to taxonomically to get a new species of anything.
Yes.
But would that be something that would be like a holy grail for you?
That'd be great if I was the one to have discovered it.
Right,
and I wasn't, unfortunately. But it'd be cool to find a new species. It'd be great. I have friends of mine that are professional herpetologists. Say, hey, could you name that after me? Maybe. You know. So that would be nice.
That's what my dad did, by the way. He was a entomologist.
Cool.
He named like 150 new species of chironomids.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a very small thing, and very few people could do it.
Oh, sure. And of course, it's not like if I were to discover it and I were to do this description, it's improper to name it after yourself.
Correct.
So, like, and I have a lizard named after my father, which I donated to some money to Villanova University for a new species of gecko that was discovered in New Caledonia. So and my dad had just passed away, and I thought this would be a cool thing. So it's Ashley Eye, so it's cool. It's also kind of me too. Cool. So yeah. So, but it's a neat thing, and. In the United States, it's interesting, just like in New Mexico, which is, it can be fairly remote in some areas, and I live in the Boot Heel.
Right.
But just a couple of years ago, we had some friends. One was a professional herpetologist, Bob Hansen, and he found a little tantilla, a little black-headed snake, over on Geronimo Trail, which is just inside New Mexico, and it was a new species for the state. It wasn't a new species as far as discovered, but it was a new vertebrate for the state of New Mexico.
Yes. And
in that same year, there are the tiger rattlesnake, which are pretty common around Arizona here, around Tucson. But there was a population that was right on the border, and Charlie Painter, who was a state herpetologist in New Mexico, good friend of mine, he's passed away.
I knew who that was, actually.
Great guy.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of study sites and stuff with him over down the Obscurus and stuff. Great guy. And but he knew that they were here because they were so close. Right. And then when the New Mexico Game and Fish came out with a poster maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they actually put it on the poster, even though one had not been found yet. And that same year that they found that little Tantilla wilcoxi, which was it's a subspecies of Tantilla, they discovered a tiger rattlesnake inside in the Guadalupes.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, and I've got one of the first ones ever found in New Mexico at the museum. But
and I would think as things get hotter and change, that you're going to see more species coming up.
Well, you're going to see, unfortunately,
and the other species going goodbye.
You're going to see more, pretty much species going away.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like Mojave rattlesnakes are normally, they're pretty low elevation. You can find those 1,000 foot or whatever, and they used to only go up like where we are. The valley between the Palencios and the Chiricahuas is around 4,100 foot elevation. And Mojaves are there, and Western Diamondbacks are there. Mojaves only go up to about the foothills of the Chiricahuas, which is about 4,500 foot. The Western Diamondbacks in the last 15 years they're going way up. They're probably closer to Sunny Flat Campground and maybe up another 600 or 700 feet higher in elevation. Well,
they start competing.
So these animals, and they'll integrate from time to time as well. But some of these animals, you got animals that are already montane species, like the twin-spotted rattlesnake, which is very protected, endemic to Arizona. They're already at 9,000 foot elevation, 8,000 and 9,000 foot. So as it gets warmer, they're going to be extirpated. They're gone. The originals rattlesnake, which is and the banded rock rattlesnakes are a little bit lower down in elevation, they're going to have to move in to fill those habitat niches. So if we don't start going the other way, we're looking at maybe having no coniferous forests in Arizona in the next 50 years. They're already saying, and all these montane species will be gone.
Yeah,
unless thing of the past.
Unless I guess they can migrate if there's availability.
There's no. Well, they can't because they're already isolated on these islands.
They're isolated.
There's no way. It's too hot down here, so all they can do is go up and up and up until that, and then they're gone. So there'll be assurance colonies.
Right.
One of the things that we just did this project with Andy Holycross down in Mexico was to take the Willow obscurus, which was the only federally protected rattlesnake up until just recently, to bring some animals in from Mexico and then release them in some populations that are around here in the state to try to fortify the genetic,
because we have them here.
Yeah, and it's a federally protected animal.
It's like bringing in bighorn sheep.
Yeah, and we're just going down like 10, 15 miles into the Mexican border, and these animals are right at the edge of their range. So they're found like in the Palencios and the Animas Mountains. So we're just right at the fringe. So they're just trying to fortify that genetic, Yeah.
Explain to people why it's important to have rattlesnakes in the environment, because they might hear this and go, "Why are you bringing in more rattlesnakes?"
Well, yeah, especially with controlling rodents.
Yeah, the biggest.
One of the studies that we've done at the museum with one of our science director, Gordon Schuett, he's actually been doing studies with rattlesnakes eating mice, and as the rattlesnakes go to the bath, they have stool, whatever. The seeds are being dispersed and being germinated, and they're actually helping to spread different grasses and stuff just by eating different deer mice and kangaroo rats and things like that.
Makes sense.
So there's not only are they taking away lots of rats and mice, which are a problem, they get into your car and chew that up and everything else, but it'd really nice to just helping with so many things that we don't even understand.
Well, and also just from a medical standpoint, I can address that is that a lot of the mice carries fleas like bubonic plague,
sure,
and
hantavirus,
which is a very dangerous thing. It killed,
absolutely.
Michael Cabote died of the hantavirus, to my understanding. And so, we think, as you and I love snakes, we love rattlesnakes, but those that listen so often are like, I don't understand why we should have them. And the reality is there's a lot of reasons to have them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Maybe not in captivity for your average person wants a pet. I would recommend a rattlesnake,
but I've always left rattlesnakes all around my house.
You sure? Yeah, we do too. Yeah.
I have had a dog, and I had her rattlesnake trained, and she was very good at it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, our dog's terrified of snakes.
Yeah, mine would not.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, there's a rattlesnake over there, because I can look at my dog and tell there's got to be one somewhere close by.
Right. Yeah.
So you can live with them. I think for me, it's learning. If you can learn some of the habits of these animals, it'll save you a lot of discomfort and problems. Like when you go at night, look in the corners.
Watch where you're going to walk and stuff. And a friend of mine, he works for us at the museum, and he was moved to the Rodeo, New Mexico area probably 15 years ago, or maybe a little before that.
Right.
And he was in his carport, and he hears this he thought his car tire was leaking air.
Right.
So he's going around to see if he ran over a nail or something, and he walks over, and a Western Diamondback bites him right in the leg. He's like, well, that was a $50,000 expense. So, and that costs a lot more now. An average bite, if you have to go if you're looking at a helicopter flight potentially from where we are, it would be. But you're looking at probably $250,000 for a lot of these bites.
Wow.
Anti-venom is typically going to get, a minimum of like 12 vials at $3,000 to $4,000 a vial.
Wow. Well,
let's
talk about that, because you've been bitten twice, right?
Yep, I've been bitten twice. Yeah, which 100% my fault. One time I had some rare originals rattlesnakes. They were the Chihuahuan originals from Mexico, and we had them born at the museum. And they weren't taken care of properly. My curator, I was out of town or whatever, but I came in and they have to have their they have a shed probably within 7 or 8 days of after being born.
Yeah.
Well, because they were in a dry substrate, the skin was all stuck on it.
To them.
And they're very rare animals.
Right.
So I knew that I was going to have to hand take the skin off. And because these things are only about that big.
Right. Like,
they're very small.
So
and they're not a really
4.5 inches.
And they're not a really potent venom. It's not like it's like, oh my God, this is like a Mojave or anything. Right. So I knew that it was fairly mild. I was taking a risk, but I had to do it all by hand. And I also had two of my friends that were staying with us that weekend, which were two of the top reptile veterinarians in the country. So and of course, they were telling me the night before because they've both been bit. I'm like, great, you're jinxing me. So I was there with one of my friends, and I got the skin off of 5 of them, no problem. Never got bit, no problem. And I got to the 6th one, and I'm doing it. Also, just kind of turn around, got me the finger. It's like, I'm like, again, I didn't feel it even. I had rubber gloves on, which wouldn't stop the snake from biting me, but it helps pull the skin off once it gets wet off the thing. So, and then I took the glove off, and I could see the 2 little things, but it's a very small snake. It didn't hurt at all. So I put the glove back on, and I continued to get the skin off the snake, and it got me on another finger. This little one was a little pistol. Yeah. So
it probably used up quite a bit of its venom in the first one.
Both fingers were affected the same way, but yeah, you'd think. So a lot of people say that it's better to get bit by an adult snake than a venomous snake, than a baby snake, because they can't regulate the amount of venom. But I guarantee you, and I wrote about it in this book, but baby, they only have a small amount of venom. So as far as venom yield goes, I'd rather take all the venom of a baby than take a chance of what the big one's going to do. So luckily,
there's just less amount.
There's just less amount. And so a good friend of mine, Dan Kyler, who's he's basically, they call him on about every snake bite in the country. He's out of Minnesota. And I've always had his cell number in my phone. I've known him for 30 years.
Right.
And I said, one day you're going to get a call from me, because I've been dealing with venomous snakes my whole life. And I said, Dan, how you doing? He's like, what's going on? Bob probably hadn't talked to him in 6 or 7 months. And I told him what happened. He said, well, you know what? How long ago did you get bit? I said, I'm going to wait about half hour, 40 minutes, and call me back, and we'll see your reaction, and whatever. And I told him, and I just had a little bit of, just a teeny bit of swelling, whatever, and not too bad. And I had nothing else was affected. And he said, well, you could go to the hospital, spend a lot of money and all that. You're probably okay because of the species, because it's such a small animal. Keep it elevated. It'll help you with the pain, and just relax. And if something starts to go south, you definitely get to the hospital. But he said, in my opinion, you're probably okay. And of course, I had the 2 vets stand with me. So I got 2 veterinarians with me. Right. So okay. So, and if I held my hand like this, it didn't hurt.
So
if I put it below my heart,
yes,
it would start to throb. Yeah. Now, over the next day or so, both of these fingers were probably almost twice as big.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of bruising here in my lymph nodes.
Yeah.
And I was a little tender when I touched here. A little bit of swelling, but not much. And that lasted for about three weeks. And then this went away. Everything was fine. And these fingers were still about 20% bigger for about maybe almost 2 months. And finally, and I had I have nothing from that.
No
after
sequelae.
that. No, right.
Yeah.
So that was my first bite. And I thought, and I've been careful. I've been dealing with venomous snakes my whole life. And I thought, boy, I'm glad. I had a lot of respect for that little snake that was probably, half the size of a nightcrawler.
Yeah.
It's like, God, I can't imagine some of these. We have one at the museum that's probably that big around, that's 7 feet long.
What is that?
That's an animal. And it actually was written up in Herp Review, and it's an animal that was collected in eastern Texas, and it's a timber rattlesnake hybrid with a western diamondback, which is a naturally occurring hybrid there. Very rare to find, and it was donated to me. In fact, we've had it on exhibit now for about 7 or 8 years. Eats rabbits and rats.
Wow. And so it's 7 feet long.
About 7 feet long.
And it's about the width of a grapefruit.
Yeah, I'd say about like that. Yeah,
so
like that.
That has to be one of the largest, if not the largest, rattlesnake in captivity.
It's probably one of the largest in captivity. I mean, there have been larger ones. And we used to breed basiliscus, and they're very prolific. And those are probably, they can get bigger than that. And I had one that was bigger than that.
And what's the common name?
That's a good question. West Coast, I think it's Mexican. I'm better with the Latin names than the common names. Yeah. It's found down in central Mexico. I think it's the Mexican West Coast rattlesnake, I think. Okay. But it's a basiliscus. It is the largest rattlesnake. You've got the adamantius, which is the eastern diamondback, and you've got the basiliscus, and it's probably the basiliscus is bigger.
And what's the biggest a rattlesnake can get?
8.5 feet, 9 feet, they say, right in there. I mean,
have you ever seen one that size?
The biggest one I've ever seen is probably about 7.5 to 8 feet. I look at the records in these in the books, like they talk about boa constrictors are 18 feet. I've never seen one over 12.
Yeah.
Reticulated pythons are 33 feet. I mean, so a lot of and of course when they're dead, they stretch
too,
a lot. Yeah, exactly. So I take some of that with a grain of salt. I would think an 8-footer would be about as big as they get.
Yeah, I would think
an 8-footer is about as big as they get. Yeah.
Have you ever seen one like that? In
the biggest one I've seen in the wild, they rarely get. You won't see them in the wild. Maybe back in the day. Yeah. And if you found like where you had a big cornfield where there were a lot of rats and mice attracted, they could just sit there and eat all the time.
Right.
You'd probably find larger snakes there. Right. The largest snake I found in the wild, rattlesnake, was probably driving from Sierra Vista going around the wrong side towards the monument, and it was probably 6.5 foot Western Diamondback, which is a big snake,
Yeah, I saw one that size right at I-10 and Hatch, New Mexico.
Yep.
And, I guess there's a lot of agriculture and water.
Yeah, and the more, if there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of rodents and stuff around, they can sit there and they can eat more than, a snake can eat 5 or 6 times a year and live and be fine, or they could eat twice a week.
Yeah.
So it
I was
depends.
shocked to see one that, it was at night I saw it. I was like, that is the largest rattlesnake.
I always stop and try. I've got tongs or my car, so I pull them off the road and try to save them. So
yeah. So about 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah,
around here, there's a lot. Around
we
here.
see, and of course, at the museum there, we get all the locals call us, whether it be a Gila monster or a rattlesnake. Either me or my curator goes out with a tong and puts us in a bucket. We drive a mile down the road and let it go.
Yeah, because they are very territorial, right? And if you take them out of their territory, that's
if you take them too far, because then they just start wandering. A lot of times they'll get hit by a car or eaten by a hawk or whatever. So a lot of animals, if you move them too far away, it's a death sentence to them anyway.
Yeah, right.
So I don't tell the homeowner we're going to let it go. We're not too far from here.
Yeah, have to. Though.
Yeah, but if we want the snake to,
have a chance.
Have a chance. Yeah. If I go and let it go 10 miles away. Yes, it's probably not gonna.
It's not gonna make it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Especially if it's late in the year, I would think it would be a real problem.
Yeah, it could be definitely, and also, and I know with a juvenile, like a little baby, they may not have imprinted on the area yet. Or that you might be able to move a baby one, and it wouldn't affect it as much. But again, I don't.
And it's because they know where to go to get food.
They do. They know they have their little area. They know their little area, especially after they're a 10-year-old animal. They know every little,
Yes, they know where they've eaten every time, and they know how to get food. And,
exactly.
And where, importantly,
they know where the scent trails are. They'll sit along they can pick up the scent of a mouse, and they'll sit there on the trail. They might wait there for 10 days or 2 weeks, and they'll just sit there. They got nothing else to do. Yeah. And then when a mouse comes by, boop, it gets it. Yeah. So,
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so, right now in Arizona, it's been exceptionally hot, right? I've got shorts
hot
on.
and dry.
It's January 2nd.
The last 2 monsoons in Portal have been where we normally get around 14 inches of rain. We've been getting like 3. And it's devastating because you're as far as recruitment with a lot of the wildlife there.
Yeah.
These animals don't have any food to eat and they don't survive. So a rattlesnake will have babies, but the babies won't live. So very few of them will grow up to be adults. Mm-hmm. So, and 2 or 3 years that this happens from time to time. But if this were to go on for 15, 20 years, well, we could see whole species in different areas extirpated from that area.
So when we see something like this where it's very hot, it's been exceptionally hot, I'm always looking for snakes and herps and anything. Mm-hmm. Even this time, I have literally not seen any out other than little small lizards here and there. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Why don't they? I mean, they have to come out, I would think, a little bit, don't they? If it's, let's say, a run of 80 degrees 5 days in a row.
Oh, you're talking about rattlesnakes?
Yeah, rattlesnakes.
Yeah, well, most of, when it's really hot out, especially in the summertime, they're typically nocturnal.
Correct.
Now, this time of year, you can still see, they're not truly hibernating in the wintertime, but they're brumating. So they're still active.
Explain that for people.
Well, I've been up, I was up in, my wife, before we moved here, we were from Michigan originally. We were up at, above the Nature Conservancy there in the Huachucas. Mm-hmm. And we were right up at the top. We went up the staircase that goes up there. And it was probably December. There's snow all around. And there's a black-tailed rattlesnake sitting up there in the rocks. And it would come out, and where it was, there was no snow. But it was getting sun. Right. So even though it might be 40 degrees or 30 degrees outside, on that rock might be 75 or 100 degrees on that rock where the sun's hitting. And the rattlesnake was sitting there, and it rattled its tail like this. It was moving it like this. Not enough to make a noise.
Right.
Not enough to make a noise, but it was sitting there like that. So I got video of it, just like moving its tail like that. So these animals come out, and we'll see a Western Diamondback or a Mojave out middle winter in where we are at high elevation. It'll just be across the road, or they're just getting some warmth, and then they go back into their thing at night. They typically don't eat during that time of year.
They don't eat, right?
Because they wouldn't be able to digest it.
Yeah, because
they're cold-blooded.
Yeah, because I always look, even at this time of year, I'll go and sometimes look for areas I think they're going to hibernate or.
Yeah, they typically, most of the animals, like Gila monsters, the best time to find Gila monsters is probably in February. But because a lot of these animals will come out, they'll come out right by their hole, and they'll sit there, and then they'll go back in at night. and they just come in there to warm up, and then they go back in. So a lot of these animals aren't moving very far. So you're finding them where they're overwintering. You just sit right there and then get out of there. So if all of a sudden predators, that they can get away too.
And so why do the rattlesnakes go in big groups and hibernate in big groups?
Certain species do that, and garter snakes, of course, are very famous for doing that up in Canada. I think it's for safety, and they find a good area, and they're being animals are being reproduced, and babies are there. I think that they imprint on that area, and they know it's a great area to get away from things. So they get down there, and there's not a lot of these areas that get down out of the heat. So if there's a big hole somewhere, maybe it was an old, prairie dog hole that used to be there, whatever, and they go down there, and that just works out good for them.
I mean, you can have tons of snakes in one hole.
Oh, absolutely. Well, up in Canada, you talk about garter snakes, and you can have 7,000.
I've seen images of those,
Yes, but I've been up there, so I've seen them like right there.
In there,
Oh, yeah.
So, but for rattlesnakes, I mean, rattlesnakes will eat different snakes, right?
Well, they're not known for it. Now, of course, we have on exhibit. We've had different species together, and it has happened. Just in this year alone, we've had 2 different rattlesnakes eaten by other rattlesnakes.
Yes,
it does happen, but it's pretty rare. And of course, you've got king snakes, which are well known for eating rattlesnakes. So that's and eating all snakes. So ringneck snakes are also snake eaters. Coral snakes are snake eaters. But rattlesnakes are typically, they eat a lot of lizards. They eat a lot of Scalopendra, which is a centipedes. As youngsters, because it's hard to get, you're not going to find baby mice. They eat a lot of centipedes and things like that. As young ones. As they grow up, they'll eat birds and mice and so on.
I was just wondering, when they all hibernate together and they're different sizes, you have to think, do some of them get eaten while they're
No, not really. I think, well, first of all, at the time of year, they're not eating that time of year.
Eating.
And also, they're not typically attracted to eating other snakes. Now, a lot of times, like if 2 snakes get onto the same animal, and they'll go, the other one will eat the other one down, whoever gets the mouth over the other one, because they're all connected. So that happens that way. And that happens in captivity a lot too. So it's very important when you're feeding animals. Like at our museum, we have a whole rack. So we take the different animals out of the breeding programs and stuff. We have them in numbered cages separately. We feed them all separately. We put them back together in their little colonies.
Because if they're together and one's eating a mouse,
if they both go onto the same mouse, they can.
One's maybe probably eat the other one.
It could. It can eat the other one. And a lot of times, if it eats the other one, it'll throw it up and die. So then you have 2 dead snakes. Especially we're dealing with some of the rare ones that we work with at the museum.
Yeah, you can.
We specialize in all the Sky Island stuff, the high montane species.
So fascinating. All the little details about snakes and what they do. I mean, I remember walking and filming a rattlesnake on my property, and then running it. I'm filming. I'm talking.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, there's another rattlesnake. And it was there was, one was very smallish, one was large, and they just kind of met and touched, and then just kept going like nothing was going on. But I'm sure if there were different types of snakes and or size, that might not be the case.
Well, typically now, if it was a king snake that came across a rattlesnake, that'd be different.
Have you seen that, where a king snake eats a rattlesnake?
I found snakes in the wild that have done that. I've not
that were in the process.
I've not done that. I've not seen it in the process. That'd be something to see it in the process.
It would be.
I can't recall ever seeing it in the wild. In situ.
I've seen Gila monsters mate in the wild once.
I've seen lots of Gila monsters in the wild. I've seen them like on top of one another and like laying next to each other. I've never seen them actually mating in the wild.
I found one at night doing that.
Oh, cool.
And I took photos and stuff, and I know it was like, oh, this is rare.
We found 2. I brought a friend out from Michigan. He was a Michigan State herpetologist. We were hiking around. We're hiking down from Carr Peak down to the Comfort Springs, and there were 2 banded rock rattlesnakes breeding on the trail, and they both try to go the other side of the trail. So they're like connected with a hemipene, and right there they were breeding. It's like, well, you don't see that very often. So
no, I've seen them do the XY kind of.
They get combating, and we've helped set up. We've done stuff for film crews and that where we're setting up with different rattlesnakes for combating and things like that.
Right, and just explain to people what that means, because I may not understand.
Well, a lot of times the males will combat. If 2 males come together, they'll combat and say to show who's more dominant to breed the female. So
and they'll come up and they go together.
Oh yeah, they go together and absolutely. Yeah,
I've seen that one. I've actually watched a rattlesnake give birth once too.
We got lucky. So we were doing a thing with Earth Touch out of South Africa, and they gave me a whole laundry list of things we want to see.
Right.
The combating thing, we got that, and they said, well, we want to see one giving birth. And a good friend of mine, Barney Tomberlin, who's a well-known Arizona resident, he just recently passed away, and he had Hitaria vertebrates, so he was supplying a lot of universities with bugs and insects and things like that. Well, he collects snakes for one of the pharmaceutical companies to make antivenom.
Yes.
So I go there and they say, hey, we're going to go up to Granite Gap. And do you have a big rattlesnake I can use we're going to do a big Western Diamondback. So I go pick out a big Western Diamondback and we go up there. We're out there filming it. Well, when I open up the bag, there's 2 babies in the bag. So we quick get the snake out and all that and film it. And it has like 3 more live birth on film. So we look like heroes. It's like, hey, what are the odds of getting having a snake give birth on film? So that was a great.
And people may not realize that, but it is quote unquote a live birth.
Because, it is live birth. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's. They still have the sac around them.
They have the sac, yes, yeah. But they come right out of it, and there
they go. I know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they're very capable of giving you a venomous bite at the same time.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, the little one's just born.
Oh, yeah.
Full of venom, yeah.
Absolutely.
The one I saw was actually at OU at the station down where Carpenter worked.
Oh, yeah.
Your friend.
Yeah, my friend. I know his son, Jeff Carpenter, very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who I played volleyball against when I was about 17.
Ah, cool. Yeah. I've been on the Grand Canyon River with him and Andy, and we've had some great, seen some rattlesnakes down there with those guys. So.
And so let's talk about the medical pharmacological aspects. So you said you've been bitten twice.
Yep.
What was the second bite?
The second one was from another baby that we had produced. It was a small little Marulus, a Tamaulipan rock rattlesnake, related to our banded rock rattlesnake.
Yeah.
And I was trying to sex the animal. I had a zoo there to pick up a couple animals. They wanted a pair, and I was just kind of like going back and forth, and it wasn't cooperating, and it just like zipped over and just tagged me on the thumb. It's like
great
stupidity, And again, if you get bit by a snake, it's pretty much your fault.
Yeah, so, as a doctor, most of the time when we'd see rattlesnake bites, it was young males had been drinking.
Yeah. And I wasn't drinking. It was, so no, I remember I went over
were working.
And I called my friend again, Dan. I said, hey, Dan, I got this a different snake. And he said, well, and this one was maybe half again bigger because it was a yearling. And he said, probably just to be safe because it's a little bit more potent venom. So I didn't take a helicopter ride. I said, Sherry, my wife, I said, we should probably go to the hospital. Says, what happened? I said, so we drove to Benson.
Yeah.
And I got Anavit, which is one of the newer antivenoms that had just been approved. It was originally a BioClone, I think, out of Mexico was doing it. But I didn't have my bad reaction to it at all, really. They gave me 30 vials of antivenom, and I was there for 2 nights, and I came home. So that was that.
And did you have a problem with your thumb or any of that stuff?
No, there's my thumb right there.
Yep.
So I don't have any.
Yeah.
I have friends that have missing fingers and all kinds of stuff, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, but I got it treated right away.
And these are friends that deal with rare and dangerous.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. And some people, like I know a friend of mine that actually does milking snakes. He milks snakes for antivenom and all that.
Right.
Well, if you're milking all these deadly snakes daily, you might be really, really, really good, but you're going to make a mistake every now and then.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing. So I would never do that.
Yeah, and even sometimes we call it, you would say mistake, but in the reality, some snakes are just can be somewhat unpredictable.
Oh yeah. Sure. Well, you've got like a snake like from Africa, like the stiletto snake. It's got a little fang like this. It can just like you're holding it like this. And it goes like,
yeah.
You're like, well, So the first guy that was holding the snake that I thought he was doing, he's like, well, shit, I didn't know it could do that. So you don't know. You know what you're dealing with.
It moves to the side. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there are some snakes in the world that are really, really poisonous. That you get bit and you're probably going to die, right?
Well,
the sea snake.
They're very potent. The LD50 rating is off the charts, but that's for mice, and that and a lot of times with a neurotoxic snake,
right?
If you can get onto a ventilator, you can last it out. Whereas with a hemotoxic snake, you're gonna have lots of tissue damage, all kinds of But with a neurotoxic snake,
right?
A ventilator can really save your life. Another thing too, you can put a pressure bandage on with a neurotoxic snake, and that'll help delay things a little bit for you.
Yeah, so it's affecting synapses. It's affecting things that have to do with that. So that's why you'd be on a ventilator. Mm-hmm. And the other one is literally destroying blood cells and tissue.
It's destroying blood cells and tissue. Now there's a new product coming out, and I don't know the company dealing with it, but they're going through FDA trials on it now, and it'll be a pill that you can take orally, and it's more effective with neurotoxic animals. So it's really going to be a godsend for the third world countries that have a lot of these deadly, like Indian cobras and crate snakes and things like that.
What about like a
gaboon
viper?
It'll work with that too.
Yeah, because it's a very
and they pump a ton of venom into you. So
because they're big, fat.
And a lot of times, of course, tens of thousands of people die every year, mostly in the third world. Here we have tens of people die rather than tens of thousands.
When you say tens, literally like
tens, 10 to 15 people maybe.
And usually is that from.
A lot of times it's from complications. It's from, how many people die from getting stung by a bee? So you have an allergic reaction.
Way more than 10, I can assure you.
So you have anaphylaxis and stuff like that.
Hundreds.
And I don't know the exact number. That's for the United States, but it's very low. It's very
I
low.
would think so.
Yeah, it's
and
very
it's
low.
primarily going to be. Is it primarily going to be neurotoxic animals?
No, the only neurotoxic snakes that we have here.
Snake, right?
We have the coral snake, and then we have the Mojave rattlesnake. Depending, we have a venom and a B venom.
Right.
The ones around Tucson here are mostly B venom. So they're mostly hematoxic. But you go towards our area, our range, when you're further east towards the New Mexico border, they're A venom, so they have more neurotoxic properties. Then once you go up towards Wickenburg, you start getting more A venom over there. So they can really vary venom-wise as far as that. Helleri, which is the South Pacific rattlesnake, is very similar. They have very, very bad bite.
So if somebody gets bitten, let's say, and they can see the snake, they know what it is, it's very helpful for them to know what kind of snake it is that was bit them, I assume.
Yeah, right? Very. So hopefully now the hospitals here like Banner and that, the hospitals in the Tucson area are great. They really know their stuff. Great doctors here. You go to some of the areas in New Mexico and there's not as many people and they're looking up stuff in like a medical book from 40 years ago.
Right.
A friend of mine, a TV celebrity actually got bit and they actually were supposed to fly him to Banner. We had it all set up with my guy. And we had people waiting on him. There was a huge, it was during the monsoon season. So they diverted the plane. They flew him to Benson, or they flew him to Deming. Yeah. They flew him to Deming. He gets to Deming. They're like, they want to do a fasciotomy on him, first of all. He's smart enough. He's been bit by everything, too. He's all over the world. But he refused that treatment. Yeah. And then the other things, I don't even know what else they tried to do. He says, no. I said, I'll be fine. It was a little concolor that bit it, which has a little bit of neurotoxic properties to it, or can, and which is the midget faded rattlesnake, which just barely touches into Arizona. And he refused all the treatment. And he checked himself out. And before he checked out, they said, well, they want to give him 6 vials just to be safe.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the problems with antivenom, especially that particular one, you can have really bad reactions to it.
Very bad.
Any other hospital that knows what they're doing would never give someone an antivenom and say, okay.
No, you have to.
And he knew that too. So he's like, are you kidding me? I said, that could kill me, what you're doing there now. So, of course, he did not do that. And he came back, and he was our keynote speaker at a conference we were doing at our place, because we have an event center at the museum. And luckily, it happened the day before, so I had my friend who was an EMT for Polar Rescue go and pick him up, and he did his talk. So he made us talk the following day. He had a bad hand. It hurt his ego more than it hurt anything else. But
oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So how should, if someone were to get bit, there's 2 ways of identifying a snake, I guess. You could take a photo, and if you get enough photos, you know what it is.
Right, sure.
Or you could collect the snake.
Yeah, your best bet, probably take a photo. Everyone has a phone now. Yeah. So take a photograph of it. And a lot of people, especially in Arizona, if I could tell you where I was, what elevation I was at,
right,
a guy could probably tell you within 1 or 2 animals what it is.
Right.
The nice thing, too, is all the rattlesnakes here are treated with the same antivenom. Whether it's a Mojave or a black-tailed rattlesnake, the same. So you're good. So you're good here. So it's probably too risky to collect the animal, but to take a photograph of it, that's fine.
Yes.
And tell them where you were, and then anyone that will be able to know or call somebody and say, hey, it was this animal because it was found at that elevation, this particular area, this is one of these 2. But again, that antivenom works for all rattlesnakes.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. And let's segue that into this, which is your book on, here it is down here. We'll talk about it, I'll just put it like this, which is snakebite treatments, right?
Yeah.
So you did this book on snakebite treatments, right?
Yes.
I remember in the Boy Scouts and stuff having a little snake bite.
The cutter snake bite kits and all that. Yeah. And I was in Boy Scouts, got Eagle Scout, did the whole thing. And they still sell these cutter snake bite kits and these other kits today that you can buy. The suction ones, the extractors and the different stuff. Well, none of them work. None of them ever have worked. A Band-Aid is more effective. So, and I've got a collection of probably 300 different snake bite kits in snake oil bottles. And I did a lot of research on it, going all the way back to the Egyptian, what their treatments and stuff were. But none of that stuff works.
What were their treatments in the Egyptian?
Oh, a lot. Some of it was poultices and incantations from different gods like Serpket and that. So, so that's...
Is there anything in these kits that there might be some things that would help as far as suction cup or anything? Nothing. Even the suction, your heart's beating, boom, boom, boom. So let's say you get bit. If you put a suction cup and suck it out within 1/8 of a second, you might get like 2% of it, but you're not doing anything. Because if it hits blood vessels,
it's going right through.
It's going in there.
Your best bet is call 911.
Right.
Go to the hospital. That's your best bet.
How about ice and treatment on the
I mean, if you cool it down, theoretically, it might slow things down a little bit, but not very much. But ice isn't going to hurt. But
that's what I would think.
Yeah, and tourniquet, you don't want to do a tourniquet. You can do more damage with a tourniquet. Now, with a snake bite and a lapid, there is a pressure bandage you can do, which will delay things, delay the venom's reaction. It's not going to stop it, but it'll delay it. Might get you to the hospital.
And that's for
a neurotoxic snake.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's been used with Mojaves because it's a hemotoxin mostly, but with the lapids and stuff in Australia, which I've done a lot of times, I've been to Australia 10 times.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with these animals here,
which are highly
highly.
Yeah, I would think the best thing you could do, and it's very difficult to do because you're concerned and worried, but is to slow your heart rate, your breathing.
Well, yeah.
And try to not.
You don't want to go hiking up a mountain
or
stuff
even
like
just,
that for
if
sure.
You're scared and everything, just a deep breathing and try to realize that
if you can sit there, don't excite
yourself.
Don't excite yourself and just try to be calm. Have someone call 911, or if you can't, and then get to a hospital. That's the main thing to do.
Does it matter? I always assumed it mattered a great deal if you got hit, let's say, in the jugular,
Well, absolutely. Yeah, if you got bit by a Mojave rattlesnake on the carotid artery, you're probably dead. Yeah. I mean, but that's going to be pretty rare that happens. So
in other words,
depends if you get bit in an artery or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, location can definitely have an effect.
Yes, I would think it makes
most of the time people are bit on the hand or the foot.
Yeah,
that's kind of where they're bit typically. So
I wrote a murder mystery about that and used a snake to be
cool
to and
weapon,
hit him in the carotid. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can't. I don't know exactly how quickly or what that would do. You're right. Yeah. So that would not be a good.
It would be not and hadn't eaten in a long time.
Anytime you introduce a foreign protein into your body, it's going to be a problem. So, but it's just going to go everywhere.
So, which brings up one of the things I think people need to realize, especially in Arizona. We have a lot of people visit in Arizona. Mm-hmm. Don't put your hand anywhere that you can't see. Use something else.
Yes.
Don't bend over and look into.
If you're lift over a rock like that, there could be something right under that rock.
There probably is. In fact,
very possibly.
Very possible. I love things like
you got to be careful.
Flower pots and hose areas where there's water and in this corner. I always
they love it where there's water
and corners. They love corners. Mm-hmm. So that when you go into your house, all the corners. Check the corners of your doors.
And we're lucky here because we have rattlesnakes that like to rattle, but. You don't think, they're always going to rattle and let me know. Well, they will a lot of the times, but not all the time. No. A lot of times, I like to say they go cryptic, and they'll just sit there, and they'll wait for you to walk by. They don't want you to know they're there, so they just sit there and they don't do anything.
Right.
And they won't even move. So, and they're hoping you're just going to walk on by. I mean, these animals are afraid of you. You're this giant thing, predator.
Right.
They don't want to hurt you. They don't want you to see them. Right. But if all of a sudden you're there, they're going to get defensive. They're going to bite or whatever they can to keep you away from them.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and they also are heat sensors.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So they can feel the heat of you with their...
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So that's the other thing. Yeah, no, I ran across a rattlesnake that was, it was a Mojave, actually. Mm-hmm. It was in full strike. And I took a step back, obviously, to get a photograph. And as I took the step, I looked where I was sitting, and there was my foot right next to a baby tiger.
Yeah. Which is really, tiger rattlesnake's got a pretty bad bite.
I know. I knew they did.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But I kind of thought maybe that little tiger was more interested in the big snake that was in front of me than actually me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully, and a snake can bite you and not envenomate you, so they can give you a dry bite.
Yeah, and there's a percent that do that.
There is a percent that do that. So it just depends.
They use their venom up,
and they don't want to use it up, and they use it. It immobilizes the prey. Can also help to digest the prey too a little bit too. So, but they don't want to use all their venom.
All their juice.
So yeah.
So the best thing to do is to get a photo of the snake if you can, so they know. But because in this area, we'll probably know it's already all the same venom.
Yeah, it's all the same anti-venom. So yeah.
Yeah, and just assume that you are going to need to go to the hospital.
Yeah, and you're better safe, and hopefully your insurance will cover it. But you don't want to lose a finger, or you don't want to. Your odds of dying from it are probably pretty nil.
Yeah,
unless it was like a big Mojave or something like that. But you don't want to have a damaged hand and stuff, anything like that.
Plus, it's going to help.
Your whole arm turns black. It's still good.
You'll get through it a lot faster.
You'll get through it a lot quicker. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, and it does. It happens every year. And
oh yeah, for sure. You got to be real careful.
The key is awareness.
Yeah.
At night, have a light.
Yeah.
Look.
Watch where you step. That's the most important. We pulled off the side of the road to pull a snake off the road, and then some young Mexican kids pulled up, and they were like drinking and stuff and all around her. But one of the girls was walking right by. It's like she was going to step on this Mojave. It was right on the, and I'm like, I had to keep stay away. You're gonna get bit.
Right.
You don't realize. So
And when you walk at night, look, because you can easily step on one
easily,
and I know that for a fact. I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So we have right on our property the museum. Of course, we have Mojaves and Western Diamondbacks. I see them all the time. We did our Pit Viper conference one year, and we have an overhang area between the Apache Museum and the Desert Museum, and we're just sitting at the picnic tables, and about a 4-foot Western Diamondback comes out of the parking lot, goes in between the two buildings. We're sitting there drinking beers, watching it. It goes out and comes on the other side. We never got up and did anything. We just all watched it. There's a Western Diamondback.
Didn't want to just take him and put him in.
No, he was on his mission, so we just let him go. Yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you have, you were talking about these pits that you have for all these herps that you can go, and I assume there's like horned lizards.
They're not pits, so they're walled off parts of the desert.
Yeah.
And when we did it, we put in large piles of like rock and granite and sand, and underneath it we left areas. Yeah, where with entrance holes, so the stuff lives there year round. It overwinters there and everything else.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, so you're walking around, you're seeing the beautiful. We got signs for all the different plants and trees and stuff there. We got a creek that runs through the whole property that is run with solar pump. So we got the big pond down here, and it goes underground and it pumps so water runs all day long. Oh, so we have turtles and all that stuff in there.
It goes through the property as well.
Yes.
And so, do you have to add food? If you have all these herps in there, I know they'll eat each other potentially.
Oh yeah. So now the turtles and tortoises out there we'll supplement with some cactuses and cactus fruit and some greens and things like that in the mornings during the summertime. The water turtles, there's all kinds of like fish, native fish, gambusia, and so on. Everything else just kind of eats what's out there. So there's lots of it. We have solar lights out there, so there's attracting insects like constantly and everything. And there's, as far as mice and rats, because there's water there. There's mice, there's rats, so all the snakes are out there. They're all non-venomous, nothing venomous, but there's plenty to eat. Yeah, plenty.
So you really have to do nothing.
We don't have to do anything. It's really, other than the turtles, we do supplement the turtle food. And we do on the Gila monsters in the one area. We'll pull those out twice or 3 times a year. We'll feed them lots of egg and stuff like that. But we'll actually put eggs out there and let them eat eggs. And every now and then we'll put mice out there.
And do you put like regular chicken eggs, or do you do?
We have people that actually have what do they call it? Not store ones, but the ones that are like just free range.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll just give their brown chicken eggs. We put them out there, and they'll
because that's one of their main food.
Oh sources. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Quail eggs is what they eat. They love quail eggs. So we'll do that. We'll put mice out there in a tray because we got these little places you go out there. You know where to look, especially in the wintertime.
Right.
It's 30 degrees at night, then it's like 70 during the day.
Right.
And the people that come in to see the museum, I say, hey, come here, and I'll say, look over there, and there'd be like you see Gila half out of his hole. Yeah. And that's the best time to see Gila's at our place, there. So
to me, it always seems like the best time I see them here is late March, early April, and October.
March is probably the best month to see them consistently. Like if you know where you're going, there's some areas around Tucson where they're really easy to see. Yeah. But even in mid-February to like mid-April, and then monsoon sign is good, and you'll see them out moving.
July, but anytime there's water.
But they're very predictable when it's really cold at night. Because they're going to be right out, getting a little bit of warmth during the day. Right. So if you know where you're doing and where to look, you can find them pretty easily.
All right, let's talk about your Apache Museum. So we've talked about the herpetology component. Which is the bigger component, would you say, of the museum?
Oh, by far. When we moved out there, we bought the property. We've got quite a bit of property, like 600 acres. But when we first did, it was all reptile. Everything about my life is herpetology. We were a book publisher on herpetology. Right. We have a apparel company that all
That's
that
right.
stuff.
And by the way, there's some big books. I didn't bring them in here, but you did of the art.
Oh yeah, So we kind of combined art and we combined biology to create a really cool piece.
Right. Museum.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's what our museum is. And then one of the cool things when I was there, and I guess we're all kind of interested in cowboys and Indians as a kid. And when I moved here from Michigan, this was in when was this? 15 years ago. So about 2009, and a lot of these, I'm meeting friends and people that are out there, and they have amazing collections of stuff that their grandparents had and stuff that, of course, Geronimo surrendered just down the road from us. So we got the surrender site, we got all this culture. I can go out and see pictographs and granaries and all kinds of stuff in the area. So I'm finding out, people are coming to talk to me like I'm an expert when I'm not. Hey, what should I do with this? They wanted to list it on eBay or whatever. I'm like, well, this is really cool stuff. I says, what do you want for it? Well, I'll just buy it. So people got to know that I was the guy to bring all their crap to. So I've got like 1,000 arrowheads and all kinds of stuff. So, and big metates, I think I've got about 100 metats, And people would bring the stuff to me, and I was the guy that bought the stuff. And my wife was like, what are you doing? I said, it's cool. So we talked about building an event center because I run trade shows as a way that kind of built our museums. I run big shows for the reptile industry in Chicago and in Anaheim and so on in Dallas. And so I use some of that money and say, let's build an event center for academic meetings because we do these big trade shows that 8,000 people come to.
Right.
The meetings I do at our place, we have 300 people come to or less.
And they're academic.
They're all academic, yeah. So it's professors and students who get papers and so on.
Right.
And so we built this museum, Apache Museum, which also we use 3 times a year or so for academic meetings.
Right.
We do about 300 people in there. But the rest of the year, you can go through there. We did a timeline that goes through 25,000 years of human history, and it's got 20 display cases full of Apache artifacts, different things, bows and arrows, and everything you can imagine.
Things from the region,
It's all from the region. Yeah. It's all stuff for Apache stuff from the area, and we've got some Mimbres stuff that was from that area as well, and some other things. So the timeline, we kind of have the display cases where the timeline goes around this big building, this big room, and we have the older stuff like the Mimbres stuff, the Casas Grande and the different things. Right. And you go through culture, and the Apaches is actually the newer group. Yeah. They've been here for maybe 400 years. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. So, and then it ends with, and then of course you go to the timeline, you're reading about Geronimo and all that. It kind of ends. Right.
And you're not that far from the surrender area.
We are from the actual site. And I've been on the site, it's actually on private property. It's pretty sad, but it's about 15 miles from us. Wow. From where the museum is, about 15 miles. Wow. And there's a monument to it. Yes. Maybe 7 or 8 miles down the road, but that's not where it actually happened.
We're miles and then we're
yeah.
And that's interesting. So people who want to come to see your duality of nature, botany, herpetology of all types, and then you have this wonderful Apache Museum as well. Yeah. That shows the whole timeline of the history and region. Yes. Of basically the boot hill of New Mexico and Arizona, right at the border. You're in actually New Mexico.
We're in New Mexico. So the museum, I live in Arizona. We're actually right in New Mexico. And we actually, a good friend of mine, Wes Studi, who played Geronimo in the movie. Yes. Came down and we hired him to do the voiceover. So we did a little 20-minute documentary. He played himself as Geronimo, or played Geronimo like he did in the movie. Right. And narrates a great thing that our science director, Dr. Shuett, put together, and he did the story of it, and it really turned out really nice. So
that's very cool.
And that plays. So when you go in the museum, that's playing on a loop. So
and they can get a DVD.
They get a DVD there, absolutely. And then of course, people come from our gift store. My wife runs a gift store, and we have some amazing the Native American jewelry and the pottery and all the stuff that's for sale. There's great stuff.
Yeah, and you probably have contemporary Native things too.
We do,
So you're supporting the indigenous people
we go up, the people up in Gallup know us well. Yeah. So we go up there. Yeah.
So you're help support
absolutely.
all living in contemporary
absolutely, and we don't sell any jewelry that's not native. It's all it's all not the crap that some places sell.
Guaranteed
China,
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah. And so is there places that can also be rented to stay in that area?
There's lodging there. There's the Chiricahua Mountain Lodge, and then we have dormitories on grounds for we have our class students and stuff there. Right. But there's a Portal Peak Stores right there. There's quite a bit of lodging there. And of course Airbnb, there's lots of great places. Right. Cave Creek Canyon Ranch has a great lodge up there too.
And to find your place, how does someone go about it? Just geologically, just geographically.
We're basically halfway between El Paso and Tucson. So, but if you just Google Chiricahua Desert Museum, it'll come right up.
Yeah. So if I'm headed to New Mexico, let's say on I-10. Yeah. So as soon as I get past Stein.
So when you pass Steins, we're the next exit. We're on mile marker 5.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I want.
Mile marker 5. We're on Highway 80. So you could literally go through Benson and Tombstone and Bisbee and get to us that way. That's the long way.
I see.
But you want to stay on I-10, drive into New Mexico, get up at mile marker 5, and that's where 80 hits there. Just go 80 south about 29 miles, and we're right there. You can't miss us. Yeah. And there's big signs as you're going down Highway 80.
And your hours?
9 to 5 every day except for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, only 2 days were closed.
That's amazing.
And I'm normally still there doing something. So.
So I can tell you have this joy and love of herpetology and the Apache material. I see it all.
Oh, yeah.
And do you see yourself finding any other avenues that you want to add to this? You've got a lot on your hands. You're publishing books.
I'm on several nonprofit boards, and I've got several businesses that help pay for what I'm doing. I run a big frozen food company that supplies a lot of the big pet trade with frozen mice and rats out of China. Oh, wow. So, but I need things to support this because the museum doesn't make any money. Yeah. It's kind of my tax shelter. So
is it a nonprofit kind of?
It is a nonprofit, and we're in the process. Our goal in the next 10 or 15 years, we're working on building the endowment for it, so it'll support itself after I'm gone.
Yes.
But we're looking to have a university or larger umbrella come over top of it to be to go on beyond us. That's our plan. I don't have any kids, or we have a Schnauzer, but we're probably gonna outlive that. So
well, and you want the research. I mean, you guys are publishing.
Yeah, we're publishing stuff on Native American stuff and lots of stuff on
rattlesnakes.
A lot of stuff. A lot of really good science that's being published through our museum. Yeah.
So. Do you work with the Sonoran Desert Museum at all?
We do a little bit with them. They always sponsor our meetings that we do, our pit viper conferences and so on. And I'm good friends with the director who's retiring, Craig, and
seems
Stefan.
Kind of like a natural fit.
They're great. They're great people. We're a big supporter of them. They're a big supporter of ours. We have a great relationship.
So if people want to find you, we know how you get there, but how do you have a website? You have Instagram or any of that stuff?
We do. We have some people that run our Facebook. I don't do any social media because I hate it. But we do have a Facebook page for it. It's Chiricahua Desert Museum, and then our website's chiricahuadesertmuseum.org.
Okay.
So Chiricahua, if you Google Chiricahua, it's Chiricahua phonetically. So if you want to know how to spell it.
Otherwise, Chiricahua.
Chiricahua.
Yes.
And
so they can go to the website. They can go to Facebook.
They can go to Facebook, yep. And they can see the stuff. We might. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. That's all right.
I think we might, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
But if they show up any day of the week, basically, except Christmas.
Except for Christmas and Thanksgiving, we're there, 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
And one thing to know about New Mexico, we're right on the border. So in Arizona, in New Mexico, half the year, it's an hour later there.
Yes.
But the other half of the year, it's the same time.
Yes.
Right now, it's the same time, but because of daylight savings, one state has it, one doesn't.
Yeah.
So you got to be. So we close at 4 Arizona time, half the year.
Unless they change it, which maybe they will now.
And sometimes people will call and say, "Hey, we're running late," and we'll, if we're busy, I'll have our people working the gift store. So they'll stay open a little later if it's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
So it's basically anybody who's headed to Santa Fe or Las Cruces from Tucson. All you have to do is it's a little halfway there.
Yeah. 29 miles detour and you're there, and it's a beautiful area. And we're actually the area is probably best known for not reptiles, but for night sky, because there's no light pollution there. So you look up and see the Milky Way. It's just beautiful.
Right.
Lots of telescopes. And then more than anything is birds. Yeah. We have many species of hummingbirds and trogons and all these things. So we
Sandhill
have famous
cranes probably come through that.
Oh yeah, sandhill cranes and 14 species of hummingbirds, and we had some eared quetzals out there a couple of years ago, and so when there's a new bird, it's, oh my god, that was a there's also we had a really good day today. What happened? Oh, there's an eared quetzal up in the canyon. That's it. Okay,
that's so funny.
So and we have, of course, we have lots of bird feeders in the garden. So with all the trees now, they've been there now for 15 years. That's we have a lot of birders that come just to see all the birds in the garden. So.
Yeah, you must have hummingbirds constantly, right?
Oh yeah, we have hummingbird. Oh yeah,
year round.
Oh yeah. Most of them are gone. There's a few people that keep the hummingbird feeders out. We don't see them at the museum in the wintertime, and they're pretty much gone. But boy, come
they're still around here though.
Come March or April, and you're a little bit lower elevation than us. So they're here, and even trogons on occasion have been seen there. We've even seen brown pelicans there. So it happens.
And so, is there a better time of the year to see your museum when all the herps are out and doing?
Best time to see it's probably during the monsoon season. We got the rainy season,
and they all come out.
Everything's out. You see, and of course the mornings are best. You go through the garden in the morning, and you're going to see turtles and tortoises. You're going to see lizards and all kinds of stuff. And as you get later in the day, the stuff is starting to get too hot. Then things are going to be hiding, so you're not going to see that stuff.
Do you have chuckwallas in there?
Yeah.
And collared lizards, I assume?
Collared lizard, leopard lizards, Gila monsters, and lots of little native
horned lizards?
We have 3 species of horned lizards in there. So,
And so do you have ant beds and things for them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have lots of ants there. So you can go there in the morning. We have a huge, big harvester ant thing right there as you walk in. So you got a couple different species will sit there, and mornings are best. Yeah, around 10 o'clock in the morning is a good time to see hognose snakes, and also a friend of the horned lizards. They like to come out right around 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
And it seems to be we're really losing the horned lizards now. I don't know.
There's a lot of people, they're spraying for insects and stuff. People are killing ants and stuff. So if there's no ants, there's no horned toads. So, and the more roads they develop and more parking lots they put in and so on, that's it,
I've only seen a few here in Tucson during my career.
They're doing pretty well where we are still, but, we still see a lot of mostly Texas horned lizards, like around the museum. We see those right in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We have Modestum, which is the roundtail.
Yes.
The cornutum is the Texas.
Yes.
And then we have Solari, which is the regal horned lizards, and those are found over. You can find a little bit of a small population over near Antelope Pass, and then you got Hernandez eye, which is a shorthorn, and those are higher elevation. You'll normally see those, and all those are here in Tucson area too.
Yeah.
And you'll normally see those around 5,000 foot elevation and higher, maybe 5,500.
And all those species that you talk about, they've all been brought into the museum for you to. In other words,
the ones that are in the garden,
yes.
we put them in because we're at a low elevation there. Now we've got the habitat there because of all the trees and what we've done there. But all those animals have been put there.
Yeah, and
there's a few that were found there already that are there.
Yeah,
because we find stuff that's right in the parking lot, horned lizards and so on. So yeah,
and so a lot of the specimens that you get like this, if they are endangered or threatened, you get special permits or
yes, we have all the native endangered species there, but we have permits for everything like that. Absolutely.
I mean, you're one of the guys.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and people bring in stuff. A lot of times I'm calling the state and saying, "Hey, someone just brought in a Gila monster. Do you want to come pick it up? Do you want to go release it?" Most times, just go release it at Granite Gap or whatever, something like that. So,
are there quite a few Gila monsters in your area?
Yeah, there are. They're pretty common where we are.
Oh, that's so interesting.
They're pretty common. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think it might be a little cold for them, but
we had some years. It's probably like 6 or 7 years ago. Of course, the people that are herpers, they like to travel around and look for snakes and reptiles in the wild. And I remember there were some younger people from Texas out there asking, "Hey, where can we see rattlesnakes and all this kind of stuff?" And I'm in the gift store talking to them, and I just happened to notice over their shoulder a Gila monster walking through the parking lot. And I said, "Well, there's a Gila monster out in the parking lot right now." They're like, "Ah!" They all run out to see the Gila monster. You know, I just had to make sure they didn't take it, so I made sure when they left that I moved it out of the way.
Yeah, so. Can you imagine getting killed in your own parking lot?
Yeah. I found dead rattlesnakes and hognose snakes and things that have been run over in our parking lot.
Yeah,
so it does
that's
happen.
so sad.
Yeah, it does happen.
It does happen. Sometimes you can't see them. You know, especially
people aren't looking. There's the snakes out there. They're just they're not looking for some little snake in the road.
No,
so
except you and I are.
Yeah, I'm always watching.
We are always.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times I've played golf with people. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Oh my God. Yeah. I'll say, how'd you see that? It's like, I just always watching.
I always am looking because.
And we go to Australia. We're like, we ride the roads for 8 hours just looking for, of course, you're finding black-headed pythons and death adders and taipans. And it's so exciting when you're seeing all these different species over there.
Yeah. Most of which are deadly.
It's the only continent where there's more venomous species than non-venomous. Yeah. So we see.
They must have quite a few deaths in.
They don't. Very few.
Is it because they're just so aware?
Well, there's more people that live on Manhattan Island than all of Australia.
Yeah.
So it's just that alone. Most of that area is completely. You can drive a whole day, in some beautiful areas, and see one person. You're going, 100 kilometers an hour, or 100 miles an hour, and you drive by one car in some of those areas out in Western Australia, up in the out. Yeah. So
and you must, And is the herping good? Do you see lots?
Oh yeah, if you're right time of year and everything, you can see. I remember one of the first times we were out. We were driving from what was it, Townsville to Mount Isa, and I think we found 7 black-headed pythons that night. We found some Stimson's pythons or children's pythons. We found lots of knobtail geckos and lots of different like brown snakes and stuff like that. So many different, and lots of little obscure little Burton's legless lizards and things like that.
And are some of those snakes somewhat aggressive? I've heard
for sure.
Snake
oh my God,
really
they're like
aggressive, right?
They're like a coach whip on cocaine, and of course coach whips are very aggressive here.
Yeah.
But they're very. You try to handle or do anything like that, you're going to get bit. They're very aggressive. So the best you can do is try to get a picture of it while it's on the road, or we maybe pin it and something like that. But you got to be really careful because if you don't know what you're doing, you could definitely get bit. And if you're out that far away from anything, you get bit by a brown snake or something like that. Yeah, you could very well be dead. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the misnomer, maybe the big takeaway from here. Rattlesnakes are not aggressive.
No, they don't want to. If you step on it, it's going to bite you. But they definitely, they're afraid of you.
If I step on you, you're going to probably punch me or move me over.
Exactly. So that's it. They definitely not looking for a fight.
Yeah.
They're just being defensive. So as long as if you see it, he's not going to chase you. Just back
that's
off.
The key.
Just back off. Then one of the things they're working on right now, and I don't know if they're working on a drug that you can take orally.
That's what you're saying.
You get bit by a snake, and then it can take away the effects for the onset of the effects for a certain period of time, so give you time to get to a hospital, which would be important, especially for a third world country, because that's where they need it.
Yeah, that's where it's all happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Bob, I'm going to come see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just thank you so much for everything you do for the herpetology world and for Native American, having a Native American.
It's a newly come interest, but I love it. And of course, I've gotten a lot of stuff from your beautiful museum, your gallery here. So
you
always have great stuff.
You're completely and utterly committed to what you do, and I just love that, to see it in person. It's so gratifying.
Oh, thanks.
And I hope people go visit this museum. If you're not into snakes, okay, go see the Native American part.
We got some great Apache stuff.
But if you are, to be able to walk through an area of acres where there's all these beautiful specimens that you don't have to worry about and just see them in their natural habitat, to me, that's just a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. It's
as
a kid, I wish this place existed when I was a kid, because I'd be like, we have kids that, we had one, some people live out there, they brought their granddaughter out.
Yeah.
And this was probably about 14 years ago. And of course, sometimes we'll take, with our science meetings, we'll take like a Western Diamondback or something, we'll put it into a clear plastic tube, so just the tail's hanging out. It's very safe. Your kid can get bit. Yeah. And that way someone can feel the rattle, they can feel, it'll rattle in their hand.
Right.
And I took a Gila monster out for this girl, and she was, again, very young. Maybe she was 7 or 8. And I held the Gila monster, she got to feel the skin, the granulated scales. It's like, so cool.
They're beautiful.
Well, she just got her degree. She's a herpetologist now. So
it happens.
And she actually came on interned with us for a summer, before that. So it's cool that the people can like see this stuff, like, oh my God, this is, I really get into it, So seeing a young person get the bug and like all of a sudden, like, how great is that?
Yeah, no, I've always had it. I don't know what it is, but it's just...
Me too. As a kid, I was always collecting toads in cigar boxes when I was like 8. It's
everything.
I'm like, what is that? It's like,
no, I had just... I've got 100 stories that I
for
won't
sure.
share.
Oh yeah. No, I know for sure.
But I'm sure you have the same
when I at scout camp, because I used to come home with everything. So it got to the point they knew me at scout camp. It was like going through customs. They'd say, all right, let's search Bob's backpack and stuff. They'd search, they'd make sure I didn't have any snakes and stuff I was going home with. They were never good at finding them.
Yeah. I understand completely.
Inside my flashlight, take the batteries out, throw those. There'd be like corn, or whatever, something there,
I understand.
A milk snake
completely.
Or something like that. Yeah,
I've had a few things like that.
They don't look very good. No, I don't have anything. You're fine.
Yeah, no, it's always, there's quite a few turtles on our course in the golf course.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll be right in the middle of the fairway, and I'll go and pick them up and take them over. But part of me is like, oh God, I'd like to take this home.
Yeah.
I'll give you a better
I was always
home.
I'm into snakes in a big way, but I've always also loved turtles. And one of my favorite turtles is the bog turtle, which is federally protected. It's our logo for our publishing company, Eco.
Very cool.
And we just published a book on bog turtles.
Yeah.
And and I got to go out with a researcher that spent 40 years of his life. So we went to New Jersey. I think we found like 29 of them in 2 days, which is like unheard of. So I was just picturing me out there holding these beautiful, just amazing animals. So full grown, they're like that big,
Yeah, but that's cool.
Beautiful turtles. Yeah.
All right, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time and all the beautiful books that you gave me.
Oh, great. You're welcome.
And I'll put some of those on the podcast so people can look at things. So you can come and buy them from his museum.
Yeah. They're all available on Amazon.com as well. So.
And help support the museum.
Yeah, absolutely. It all helps. Yeah,
all right.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Mark. Yep.
That was great.
Cool.